So let's see here. What was I? Bear with me for a moment. I put it here somewhere. No. Just bear with me.
Go from the hawk.
This looks like a setup.
Or maybe you guys can help me find it. I seem to have misplaced my faith. You know, often, like when we feel like disconnected, we start looking around through all the books, right? We try different methods, maybe this one, maybe this one, maybe this one. We have a tendency to scramble around when we're not feeling connected, trying to find something to reconnect us. You know, maybe we take a class, maybe we go to all of our friends, talk about our misery and how we feel disconnected. Maybe we look everywhere else to try to find that feeling of being connected with our source, because for some reason we feel separate from that. And one of the things that occurred to me when I was thinking about this idea of misplaced faith was all of the different topics I can take that with in the regular, you know, like conditional world about misplaced faith, putting our faith in things outside of ourselves, putting our faith in people, which is not necessarily a bad thing, you know. I don't know if anybody has ever received somebody else's faith, their trust, that you're going to be there and do that, and it brought out the best in you because you were just bound and determined to be that or do that because of somebody else's faith in you, that you could count on them to be as their best, as they expected. But it's still living outside in. It's looking somewhere else for something that is indwelling, that is always present within us when we open up the curtain to allow it to come forward. When we allow that part of ourselves that we know to be part of the one to express itself through us and as us. And I'm not saying that looking outside doesn't help. You know, you want to really connect with, you know, like that part of you and find out some way to get a key to open the door that may seem locked. I'm going to suggest that you come to our class in January about this thing called you, or any one of the classes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if you don't like us, go find another spiritual center and take a class. Because that will put you into a situation in which there are people who are exploring what it is to be human and spiritual in this lifetime that we have to share. But I really would prefer if you came and take our class. So I was thinking about this is what gets us into this situation where we feel disconnected from something. And there's a part that Holmes talks about in the Science of Mind textbook about misplaced faith. And what he talks about is that it is the lack of belief that God is all that we claim God to be. That spirit is indeed all that. That there is an omniscience, that all-knowingness that is present in the unity of life. That there is an omnipotence, the power for everything that resides in this unity of life. That there is an omnipresence that says that this power and this intelligence that is life itself is permeating and saturating all of its creation, which indeed means that it is permeating and saturating us as the individualized consciousness of spirit being us. So it can't really have gone anywhere. But we have this fear that may happen. that allows us to express a separation that can't really be. See, because if it's all one life, if it's all one unity of being that is spirit, you cannot be outside of it, because if you were, would it be one? No, it would be all that and you. That's two. That's what we talk about in New Thought when we talk about getting past this apparent duality that we experience as an individual form, because we lose sight of the fact that we are existing within the wholeness, that we are some aspect of this wholeness of life that we call spirit, God, Allah, whatever name you give it. It is the beingness of life, knowing itself in all of these forms, all of us. So, I'm going to talk about love and fear, because these are the two basic human responses to life. One is a choice, and this was pointed out to me the other. Sometimes one is a response. So I have a very clear definition of what love is. And I took it from M. Scott Peck's The Road Less Traveled back in the 70s. He wrote this, and it just, the words like resonated with me, like, there's something that I can actually hold on to as a clear and concise definition of this warm and fuzzy thing we call love. And from a human perspective, he calls it the willingness to extend oneself for the spiritual growth of oneself or another. Now let's think about that for a second. For me to grow, I actually have to open up and extend what I consider to be myself, to learn something new, to take on new perspective, to take on new experiences for my spirit to become larger. And I have to have the willingness to do that, because if I don't have the willingness to do that, then I will sit and I will play video games for a long time at a shot. Or whatever it is you happen to isolate with, whether it's reading, sitting in your room, not taking that adventure that you could take, not making that choice to extend yourself for your spiritual growth consciously and with awareness of this objective of becoming a better you. Or to extend our willingness to do and be things for other people to help them realize the greatness that they are. That's my definition of love, the willingness to extend ourselves for our own spiritual growth or the spiritual growth of another. The flip side of that is fear. And this is where I made a change this morning after a little bit of conversation. So I define fear as the urge to contract oneself for the preservation of one's ego and perceptions. So sometimes we're going to have fear that's a natural thing. It's a pretty instinctual thing, you know. If you run across a water buffalo who happens to be mean, you're probably going to be in a state of fear if it's looking at you like, I'm going to run you down. That's a pretty natural fear, you know. It's one that's been instinctual since we were running around with spears, figuring out how fire worked and how we were going to actually eat that mammoth one bite at a time. But there's another fear that we choose to respond with. That's when we become involved, so involved with the perceptions and the positions that we hold to be dear, that we are unwilling to entertain anything that will require us to grow spiritually, that will require us to look at things differently, that will require us to actually change the perceptions of how we view this world and the people around it and in it, and to withdraw into ourselves so that we just don't have to deal with that. Oh, them. They did that. He, she, whichever, did that to me. It was something outside of myself that caused me to be this way. So that perception, the urge to contract ourselves, can be a natural response to hurtful things or to dangerous things. or to things we perceive to be dangerous or hurtful. And when we're in that mode of contracting ourselves, the world begins to feel even more dangerous, even more hurtful, or that there may be some lack in our lives. So this belief in lack and limitation is the fear that we experience in responding to the idea that there isn't enough, that there will not be enough for me to experience the other side of that. That's what I mean by we don't believe this thing that we call spirit to be all of that, all of the good, all of the love, the essence of peace and harmony in life right here and now that is expressing through us and as us. And when we close or we put blinders on, maybe, we look at it and go, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. And we don't see the nature of life, that I am a human being. I am a spiritual embodiment of God itself, experiencing life in its fullness of all of the expressions that come to us in life, to be who I am authentically and to choose love. See, when we extend ourselves in love, we can extend our understanding that the spirit in me is the same spirit that resides in you. And while I may not agree with the perceptions and opinions and positions that you have taken, I can agree that we are that same spirit individualized, that we are proceeding along our paths and our perceptions in our own unique journey for spiritual growth. And I may oppose some of that in my particular opinions and positions, and you may oppose some of my opinions and positions, but it does not change the fact that ultimately we are of one thing. The thing itself, spirit, embodied as us, as consciousness, in this moment now, to live this moment as an expression of what we choose to be. And so we have this choice that we can make at every given situation. We can respond in fear and continue to believe that there isn't enough, or we can respond in love and recognize that all that there ever was is now, or will be, is present right now. That all of the power is available to us right now. That all of the good of life is available to us right now. And we can let go of that barrier, that fear that separates us from one another. Now, I know that I have a tendency to perpetually be in a state of fear. We have a system and a society which makes it very easy to remain in fear, because there are a lot of people shouting about how we should be afraid. We spend billions of dollars on being afraid. Afraid of ideas, afraid of different positions, afraid of losing what we have or not getting what we want. And we build all these systems around to try to give us this security that we are indeed going to be able to either wrest from life the satisfaction that we would have by desire and greed, perhaps, or protect that which we have accumulated from anybody else who might want to wrest it from us so that they can have the satisfaction of life that they desire. That's all the fear-based system that we have built on a global level in humanity. Yet, have you ever noticed on an individual level, when we extend ourselves in some act of kindness that just struck us, it's like, I didn't think I was going to do that, but I did, and all of a sudden there was an opening up and a blossoming in the heart, and there was a feeling of connection, whether it was an act of kindness that you personally engaged in or even heard about. Have you ever noticed that when you hear of some beautiful, noble act that somebody did, it can bring tears to your eyes as you connect with the feeling of what that is? I love that. I didn't bring one for you today. You'll have to find your own. It's one of my mentors does that a lot. Reads emails that just bring you to tears. It's a wonderful thing, but I don't do that. I invite you, though, to go out there and find one today. Just go look through all of these outside things and find something that touches your heart and allows you to open up a little bit and remember the beauty that human beings can be when we allow our hearts to open and to be that expression of love and light. See, you can choose that in every single moment. You can choose that as a response to the fear that you may experience. No, I choose to be love now. No, I choose to extend myself without the fear of the consequences, because that's generally where the fear comes up, is we stop ourselves from doing that good act because we're afraid of the consequences. What if I give that guy on the corner who looks like he hasn't slept in a bed in 6 months $10? Is he going to follow me around? Does he then become my responsibility? Have you ever had that experience where you're walking down, you don't give, like a little bit of charity to somebody because you're afraid of the responsibility that may come with that? When you extend yourself, well, in truth, there is some responsibility for that. And when we allow ourselves to accept that responsibility of loving, of being the love that we would like to see in the world, of being the new change that we want to experience in life, then we let go of what that consequences might be just a little bit and act right now in love. See, I used to work downtown, and every single day I would get off the high-speed line and walk from 16th and Locust down to JFK and 16th Street. And there were the same homeless folks lining the street, one after the other after the other. And there were days where I was feeling open and loving, and it's like, here's a buck for you, here's a buck for you, here's a buck for you, here's a buck for you. You know why? There is an infinite source of abundance. What's $1 in our lifetimes? It may seem like a lot to some people, or it may seem like a little to some people. It means different things to different people. But when we open up our hearts and don't worry about what the consequences, like, well, shoot, if I give away my last $1, am I going to be able to buy lunch? Problem of privilege. Every time I did that, I would walk into the office feeling just delightful. Not lessened by the act of connecting with somebody and opening myself up to somebody else's need and fulfilling that need to some degree, but enlivened and connected with life and the world and the people, and being able to hold my head up just a little bit taller, Say, you know what, I did what I could today. Could I do more? Yep, I could. And some days I do. And then there are the days when I walk by and it's just like, not looking you in the eye. Hasn't anybody experienced that? When you're walking down the street, just looking away, because I'm not acknowledging that problem today. I'm not going to disparage that. There's nothing really wrong with that, because some days we're more open than others, and some days that's not our thing to do. But generally, I was taught that if you see a problem, it's yours to solve. And that's the responsibility of love. Because love is actually, I don't want to say a burden. It's a responsibility. It's a responsibility we all choose. To be loving, to be tolerant, to be kind, to put ourselves out into the world as an expression of that which we say we believe. That there is one power, one love, one life, living itself through us. So if you've misplaced your faith, I invite you, rather than to look into books or classes, but please take the class, rather than worry that it's somewhere outside, is to look within yourself and ask yourself, what can I do today to pack more into the stream of life as love? And maybe reach out just a little bit and extend yourself for your own spiritual growth or the growth of another. I know I will. Namaste.